What's up, my brother?
What's happening, man? Welcome back to the Original Liberals podcast, where we are reclaiming the name liberal one episode at a time. Here we are.
We're doing the best we can.
Yep.
We're going to keep on trying to push our own weight here, and hopefully you guys can pick up on this and find some interesting stuff out of it. But what's going on, brother? How are you today?
I'm great, man. I'm great.
Yeah. You and I just moved a big-ass couch.
Yes, we did.
We did it without hurting ourselves. Actually, I shouldn't say that.
I bumped my knee, and I broke a blood vessel in my finger.
And this is the guy that says he likes getting old. All right?
Minor injuries, man.
Minor injuries. Well, tonight I wanted to open up a forum for Matt to talk about something that is a big part of who the way you describe it for me rather than me putting it into words. Please
big
do it
part
yourself.
Of I guess my personality and
Okay.
so yeah, Ben's going to interview me on my experience with having Tourette's, which was diagnosed with when I was, I think, 10 or 11, something along those lines. So I'm just going to kind of let Ben, be the guy who asks the questions from a perspective of somebody who knows nothing about it, and me from the perspective of, living my whole life with it. I'm going to try to shed some light on what I think it is, how it's affected me, and, that's that, I guess. So
Cool.
What do you want to know, man?
This is definitely going to be about you talking about this, because I would hate to interject something into this that wasn't fair or right.
I'll let you know if it's not
presumptive. I know. Please yell at me if I do.
I won't yell at you, but I'll let you know if I don't.
It'd be funnier for the podcast if you did. But no, the only thing I'm going to do from my perspective is just say, hey, first of all, I've known you, and I didn't really realize you had Tourette's. First of all, which is not I've noticed you've had a little bit of a.
Yep.
And that's about the only thing I've ever noticed in all the time I've known you.
To be honest with you, that's probably worse in front of the camera than it is any other time.
Sure, absolutely. Actually, when he's getting a little tipsy, that's when I start to see it coming out a little bit.
The alcohol makes it worse too. It's a known fact that alcohol makes Tourette's worse.
Yeah,
but,
it brings out my Tourette's. I know that, but it's probably not the type of Tourette's that most of us would be thinking, is it?
Well, I think when most people think about it, they you think about verbal tics where people just walk around yelling "fuck." That's
all they do. That's all any of us think about is just yelling out, "Oh, cocksucker!" Huh?
And that's how it's portrayed in the media, and that's fine. I honestly I mean, for example, when South Park came out with the episode, I thought it was hilarious. Like, it is. It's funny. It's but no, as far as I know, and the disclaimer here is going to be that I'm not up on the latest scientific research. I'm definitely not an expert, from an objective standpoint. I'm an expert from a subjective standpoint. And that's kind of what I'll try to give you guys.
First-hand perspective.
Yeah, first-hand perspective.
Yeah.
But, the latest scientific, my parents used to kind of, especially my mom, kind of followed this sort of thing a little bit more closely when I was younger. I knew more about that whole end of it at that point, and I kind of, honestly, I kind of just live my life. I don't really think about it a whole lot, so I know my experience, and that's kind of where my expertise ends. But I do know that verbal Tourette's is rare. The vast majority of people, as far as I know, who do have Tourette's have it kind of like what I do. Mine is a mild. Well, they said it was a mild case. The last time I actually talked to a doctor about it, I was a kid.
Okay.
So, and it was worse then. Far worse when I was a kid than it is now. So, if I had a mild case back then, I've got a very mild case now. So,
who did know that you have it? Kristen, my wife.
Did you? Yeah.
Kristen did, and the reason why is that years ago she was a professional ballet dancer. And her ballet partner was a gentleman named Jason. And she said that Jason had a very, very similar set of circumstances to what she's seen with you. She happened to know.
Yeah.
And I had no clue.
It's funny. Some people that know are usually people that have known somebody. Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
It's interesting because I don't know how many people that know me know. Anybody who asks me, I just tell them. I feel like a lot of people probably don't ask because, maybe they think it's something they don't want to ask, or maybe they don't notice, or but I really don't. And me, I don't think about it. I just go about my day. It's something I've lived with my whole life, so it doesn't.
Tell you what, if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't think about it either, because I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
You know me.
I think it's a lot.
I step over every single line, and if there was a line there to step over, I would have done it, because just because I'm purely an honest person.
Yeah, sure.
So if I'm thinking something, I don't want you to be looking at me wondering what's going on behind my eyes as my friend.
Yeah,
I want to be an
doubt.
open book.
Yeah.
So that's why I step over all the lines. That's who I am.
Yeah.
So I can tell you from that perspective, I had no idea.
Huh.
And so it's so mild.
Yeah, it is.
That just from your just if you're wondering if other people notice it, we don't. We don't.
I mean, I think it depends on who you are, though. Like, some people will, and that's it also probably depends on how bad it is that day or that week.
Sure.
I can tell you for sure it's comes and goes. It doesn't come and go overall, but there'll be 3 or 4 weeks where it's really bad, where I got to beat it down. I'm consciously thinking about it during that time.
Okay.
Not so much because I'm self-conscious, but because it annoys the hell out of me.
Sure. Sure.
Like I'm the one walking around doing this shit. But
is it frustrating for you?
yeah, it can be frustrating for sure. Yeah. I've learned ways to mentally overcome it. I guess it's if anybody's curious, there's things like that you'll notice, like facial tics. That are pretty easy to see because people are looking right at your face all the time. There's other little things that I might be doing, like, thumbs, fingers, things with my toes that nobody's ever going to notice. Tensing a muscle in my leg, nobody's ever going to see that.
Sure.
And sometimes that certain tics come and go too. Like I might tense a muscle in my leg for years. Maybe not every day. Maybe during those years where that's like a kind of an outward tic, I might have that for a week or two, and then it might go away, and then a year later it might come back, and then a couple months later it comes back, and then that one goes away completely, and I come up with something new. That'll be my new one. So, I've had.
What do you think the cause is there? Do you believe there's a cause of the ebb and flow?
What do you mean the ebb and flow?
The ebb and flow of the highs and lows.
In life?
No, ebb and flow of the Tourette's
the cause.
itself.
Yeah. Well, definitely. There's certain things that affect it. Stress is huge.
Stress. Okay.
Yeah. It's the way it works is it's like scratching an itch. That's the best way to describe it.
Okay.
I will get a conscious what's the word, urge to do this or whatever it might be. And that urge doesn't go away until I do it.
Oh, okay.
Or until I beat it down, which is intensely difficult to do. Sometimes I can put it off if I've got, a situation I want to be in where I don't want to be, or where I need it to not be bad. I can, like if I'm driving, I can't be driving and looking around behind me like this, which is another thing I do sometimes.
Sure.
When I first started driving, I kind of learned ways to do that, and now I don't really think about it. It's just when I'm driving, I'm not looking behind me. I'm not even thinking about it. It's just I've trained myself to be that way. I don't know if everybody that has it can do that. Probably not. I've seen a lot of people that have it a lot worse than I do, and I'm sure that affects them a lot more than it does me.
Meaning, have you met other people?
No, I don't know if I've ever met another person that had it worse than me. I met other people that had it. I met other people that I suspect have it, that I didn't know well enough to just straight up ask them.
Okay, I was going to say, is there a Tourette's radar where you can see it?
There's certain things that I see somebody doing something. I can, if I run across somebody, if I pass somebody in the grocery store that has Tourette's, I can be 99% sure they have it within seconds.
Sure.
Just based on, maybe they don't, but like I said, I in my mind, I can look at somebody pretty quickly and be like, all right, I know what's going on there.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Now, is Tourette's a syndrome do you believe is from birth?
They say it's...
Because it is a syndrome.
They say it's genetic. They say...
It's genetic.
Neither of my parents have it. Nobody in my family has it. So, there's that. They say that each person that has it has a 50% chance of passing it on to their children.
Okay.
I don't know... And I like I said, I prefaced this in the beginning with saying I'm not up on the latest research. at least when I was a kid, they didn't really know exactly what caused it. It was a dopamine imbalance, they supposed.
Okay.
You know.
Before we go any further,
Sure.
They supposed that back then.
Yep.
Now, even saying that you don't know the latest research on it, do they still believe that?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, so as far as you know, you believe that they believe it's a dopamine imbalance.
Perhaps, but yeah, or some kind of a chemical imbalance.
Okay.
It's hard for me to the whole is it genetic thing. I mean,
well, it's either nature or nurture.
It's either nature or nurture.
Yeah. Or some balance of both, right?
It's also highly correlated with ADD, as far as I know. If at any point during this episode I don't say as far as I know, it's implied, by the way. So
yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah, I'll continue to try to be as accurate as I can if I don't know something. But it's correlated with ADD. It's correlated with OCD.
Okay.
So I kind of view it as a form of OCD because of the way it works in your brain. Like I get an urge to do something that I shouldn't have an urge to do, like crack a knuckle, or like twitch my face, or something like that, or if you're somebody who has verbal tics, swear in public.
Yeah, of course, and that's the one that everybody knows about because that's the most intrusive one. For
Absolutely.
For the person who happens to have it.
Sure,
it's so tough. I mean, socially, I'm sure.
It's
just so you know, and I'm only saying this as a caring friend. Literally, anything the urges that you have don't affect you socially at all. People love you, man.
Yeah. I think part of that is growing up with it, and I wasn't bullied as a kid. Once I got diagnosed with it, I just I'm not saying like especially in elementary school, some people said something sometimes, and I basically responded with fuck you.
Good,
more or less,
yeah.
And people realized that really quickly that there wasn't any point in like
they weren't going to get the response that they wanted.
Yeah, exactly. By the time I was older, nobody gave a shit ever, and I think that that's part of my personality, just being able to overcome something like that socially, because I'm a social person. I like people. I meet people. I like them.
You're a true extrovert.
I think they tend to like me.
Yeah, dude. Everybody I've ever known loves you.
Yeah.
Like everybody I know that knows you loves you.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I can see how the exact.
I wouldn't even say that about myself.
I can see how the exact version of Tourette's that I have would affect somebody with a different personality type very, very differently, though.
Sure, absolutely. A more introverted person who takes things internally and blames themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas an extrovert, you and I both.
Yeah.
If someone says "fuck you" to us, we're like, "No, fuck you."
Yep, exactly.
Right? We can extrovert that energy back, and we don't have to let it rattle around in our brains for too long.
I've never been terribly worried about what people think of me, so I don't have anxiety if I've got a tic and it's coming out in public.
Fuck it.
And I'm around a bunch of people. I'm either around a bunch of people I do know who,
don't care.
whatever, they don't care, or I'm around a bunch of people I don't know and
they don't matter.
Fuck them. And that's how I live my life, and that's how I'm
pretty practical way of being. I mean, that's pretty realistic.
I guess that's why it's and that would be that's easier said than done. But if I'm giving advice to anybody, especially somebody who's younger who's dealing with it, that's the answer. I mean, the answer is to just try to be as. I guess if you're introverted, you can't change that. So it's hard to give somebody who's introverted advice and tell them to be more extroverted. But work on.
In my understanding, just so you know, because I do want to help those people.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is one of the reasons that you were so adamant about wanting to do an episode on this.
Yeah.
Is to help the folks, especially the young folks that are going through this and don't have a bearing on how to, to handle this in a healthy, constructive way. And that even if you are introverted, I would say from my non-psychology, I'm not a professional, but I would tell you just from a personal being a man perspective, an introvert and maybe initially takes things in, but after you've processed it, then you can go into an extrovert mode. And that's all right. Just whatever. Afterwards, you really think about it through. Oh, yeah, it's really, fuck them. It doesn't really matter anyways, like you just said.
Yep.
So you were how old when you were diagnosed?
I think 10, maybe 11. Yep. before that, I mean, I think my parents said I started snapping my fingers when I was watching TV when I was like 7. I don't even remember doing that.
Okay.
I remember other things after that, and nobody really knew what was wrong with me. And I just, like, I was like, I don't know, I'm a kid. Like, I can't help it was all I would say. Like, I don't know why it's going, I can't help it.
Yeah.
They finally got me diagnosed by a doctor at a WVU where my grandpa worked.
That's what I was going to
at the
ask
time,
you. Yep. So your grandpa worked at WVU.
Yeah, I remember the doctor's name. Chef, Dr. Chef. I don't remember his first name, but
he must have made an impression on you. If
he did. He did. I remember. I can picture his face. He was the first person that was ever like sat me down. Was like, I know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and it probably felt good as a kid. Be like, okay,
it did. But yeah, that was when we found out what it was.
Okay.
They gave me drugs. The drugs made me do nothing but sleep. So I stopped. I think a couple years later, I basically said I don't want to take these anymore.
So you were 10, maybe when you were 12.
Yeah, I was probably 12 or 13 when I said this isn't worth it. I made a conscious. They made the tics go away, but it was because I was asleep.
Right. Yeah.
Or drowsy as hell. Halidol is what they put me on, which is, I believe, an antipsychotic. Most of the time, it's used in low. Well, at least at the time, I don't know if it is anymore, but at the time, it was used in low doses for Tourette's, and I think they gave me like a 0.5 milligram a day or something like that. Man, that zonked me. But I was probably 13 or 14 when I said to my parents, I don't want to take this anymore. Like, I'll deal with the Tourette's, and they didn't argue with me.
Good. Okay, so that's my next question: is how did they react?
Yeah, no, they were
supportive.
Yeah, they let me do what I
that's wonderful.
What I knew was best for me.
They gave you your own personal autonomy to choose. That's wonderful.
Yep.
A lot of parents wouldn't do that, would they?
No, probably not.
A lot of parents would make it about themselves, and whether their kid was acting funny, and how their friends would ask questions.
I got good parents.
You got great parents. I met them briefly, but they seem like great people.
Yeah, they're as good as they were. Those two.
Yeah.
So, that's at that point it probably started. That was when it started to get better, and I started to really learn to master it, which. That's the kind of the biggest thing about it for me. It's learning to master it. It's like anything else in your life. I've had to learn to A, deal with it, B, like try to reduce it and make it as unintrusive into my life as possible, and then recognize that certain aspects of it are never going away. And deal with that, and not let it be something that affects me or bothers me or makes me feel bad about myself, or
just become self-actualized about it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and that's the healthiest thing. So you've expressed something to me when we talked before about it, was that you believe that it can be dealt with.
Yeah.
Please explain, because before you explain, let me ask this. Yeah. Since you believe that, is that the predominant feeling amongst the people who have Tourette's themselves, and the doctors who treat them, and the scientists who've been looking at them?
Well, I don't know, and I don't know, but
okay.
I think that there's in general in our culture, a big push toward, feeling like a victim. I think people want to. I'm not talking specifically about people with Tourette's. I'm talking about, especially younger people in general. They want to find a victim class to fit into, and so that they can make. What
identity group are they part of where they can feel victimized?
What about me makes me, how can I say poor me?
Sure.
And I think that's the worst route you can possibly go with something like this. And of course, everybody doesn't do that.
It's probably the worst route for anything.
It's the worst route for anything.
But that's an aside, of course. Continue.
Yeah, totally. So how can it be dealt with? I think was the question.
Because you said the reason I asked that question is because you said you've dealt with it. Yeah. Meaning that you've worked to. I can't remember the exact word you used to not suppress it, but to
suppress. It's a good enough word. Because of the fact that it's
an accurate.
It's an
word?
urge, yeah. Okay. Because it's an urge, and then I have to consciously make whatever weird little movement I do to satisfy that urge. I can, in theory, I can sit here and decide for the next 20 seconds, I'm not going to do whatever tick it is I feel like I got to do.
Okay.
It's going to get harder and harder and harder as that 20 seconds progresses into 30, 40, 50, 60.
Sure.
But over months and years of training yourself to, even to go 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Okay.
The length of a 30-minute car drive. You can definitely suppress it, make it better, make it less noticeable, make it less. You can change one tick into another tick. Like I said, I've got this thing where sometimes I just look behind me. If I'm in a stadium full of crowded people and I don't want to get my ass kicked by a stranger, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, think about that. Like,
Of course, some guy turns around, looks you right in the eye.
This guy keeps looking at me.
Yeah,
Like, somebody's
exactly.
going to want to kick your ass. So, like, you have to, like, there's certain situations where I can take that and turn that into, like, okay, I'm going to tense my leg muscle instead. He won't want to kick my ass if I do that. Because, like, the tick can literally be to look one person right in the eye. You don't know why the hell you picked that person.
Okay.
Hopefully it's a grandma and not a guy that looks like Ben. Like,
Well, I was going to say, I bet you.
Oh, I'm
in my
sure
days, the people have looked at me because of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what the,
Maybe not. I mean, they might
I'm
have just
sure
been,
of it.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain of it.
Yeah.
Because there are people who look surprised because I've always been not an aggressive person, but an assertive person.
Yeah.
So if someone's doing that, I'm like, what's your problem, man?
Dude, I do the same thing when somebody looks at me too many times. Like, absolutely. It's like, okay,
So
why does this person keep looking at me?
most of the time that person looks at me almost surprised and doesn't say anything and just goes and leaves. And I wonder why.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how many times I've had that reaction to someone with that affliction. I have no idea.
It's possible.
If I've ever done that to you, I apologize.
I mean, it's. I don't know if that's a normal, not a normal. None of it's really normal. I don't know if. I've never personally heard of anybody having that tick before. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there's plenty of people that have it. It's not a common one that people talk about.
Okay.
It might just be mine. I mean, a lot of these might just be my own. Like, there's some of them that are very common, and there's some that I don't know anybody else that do the specific things that I do. I've got certain ones that have come and gone that I haven't done in 20 years.
That's wonderful.
Replaced them with other things, and those new ones will probably come and go too. And it's just, I don't know where they come from. Like I said, the fact that they're all a conscious thing makes me wonder how much of it's psychological.
Okay.
I do believe a big part of it is psychological, which is why I believe a lot of it can be dealt with mentally.
Okay.
Instead of, with drugs. There's certain drugs I know that help. Like we were just talking outside, at least when I was a kid, nicotine was, they were treating it with nicotine sometimes. Nobody ever suggested giving me nicotine.
Smoking 4 packs a day?
Yeah.
10 years old?
They would give kids nicotine. I don't know. I think it was for really bad cases, but
Sure,
I
of course,
assure you nicotine helps. Nicotine definitely helps.
Nicotine is definitely a neural stimulant. There's no doubt about that. I always do my best. I smoke a cigarette before I come on here with you guys because it helps me get my mind right.
Yeah. Anytime I've tried to quit, I did quit smoking, but I dip and it's hard to like. When I tried to quit a couple of years ago.
Well, dip is a very heavy.
Yeah,
nicotine.
you get a lot of nicotine from that, and that really does like it does everything it does to everybody else too. But the nicotine calms my Tourette's down, like it totally does. And when I
problem with that is when you remove the nicotine.
Yeah, when I stop, all of a sudden it gets really, really bad.
Okay.
It's so that's
self-medication.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which cigarettes are for any of us. I mean, a guy like me with had mild depression. I mean, that helps me.
Yeah, it's why they're so damn addictive. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
But so that's that. So what else do you want to know?
From my perspective, I think more along the lines, and you didn't, like you were talking about, you didn't know if it's psychological or, physical, I guess, essentially. But to me, they're both one and the same thing.
Yeah.
Because there are portions of your brain which control portions of your actions and your operations.
Yeah.
And, it's like talking about software on a computer versus hardware on a computer, right? Mm-hmm. The brain itself, what if the hardware the beautiful thing about the human brain is it's better than hardware and software because we can grow and adapt. You know, if you want to get bigger and stronger, you go lift weights.
Yeah.
And if you want to get better at math and you better at speaking, you exercise your brain.
Yeah.
And it literally, that portion of the brain that controls those things becomes more efficient.
Yeah, sure.
So your hardware is not just hardware. It can also adapt in a beautiful way, which is wonderful. So from that perspective, I want to say that I think it's probably both. Psychological, which is more nebulous, right?
Yeah, sure.
But the psychological is your operating system.
Yeah.
You can tap into your operating system
Yeah.
and start tinkering with the hardware.
Which is what I've done.
So I think it's both, right? And so, which sounds like what you've done.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to rant on that. I was just trying to get that. By nature, I'm a problem solver, so I'm trying to think of the most basic components that would cause certain things. You know, what is the primary cause that creates this effect that we see? And maybe there's a. With that said, if you feel like you can practice the way you have, not driving and turning your head, then there is some type of component of self-control.
There is, yeah. There's definitely a component of self-control. Hands down, bar none, at least for me, there is.
Most people don't have any self-control anyways, but you've had to
it's helped me develop self-control in general.
Develop your self-control overall, right?
Yeah.
So that part of your brain is working hard. You've built it to be big and strong, it sounds like. Do you feel? Would you say you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
What's that process been like? I mean, I think you've already just explained what that process has been like, but like...
Yeah, it's... really, I mean, it's like... It's like exercising physically. You get stronger and stronger, like you said, as you go.
Okay.
You know, over the years, it becomes less of a conscious thing.
Okay.
Anymore, I don't think about... I mean... My Tourette's is almost always worse when I'm at home than it is when I'm at work or out in public, and I don't think about that.
Do you have any theories? Do you have any theories?
Yeah, I think over the years of consciously trying to do that has just kind of allowed me to settle into a situation where that's how it is. You know.
Good.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, now my subconscious
You've built
mind,
yourself to be that.
Exactly.
So when you're in public, you can repress it. When you're home,
let it all out.
Let it out.
Yep. The wife gets to sit there and listen to me do that. Yep. But another interesting flip side to the coin is I read, I kind of, I'll read like Tourette's forum on Reddit. I see some video. There's a phenomenon where a lot of these kids will develop tics and then go and then ask, is this real Tourette's or am I making it up? This phenomenon of people that see like TikToks of people with Tourette's develop tics of their own after seeing the video, and then they personally don't know whether they're faking it or not. And then they're all self-conscious.
It's psychosomatic, right?
Am I faking this? And I've thought a lot about that, and my answer, just based on me, is what's the difference? There is really no difference in my mind on whether if you gotta, and I guess kind of what I'm getting at is Tourette's one thing or is it a set of circumstances? Is it a set of...
is it nature or nurture?
Not so much as a nature or nurture, but is it one specific... is it necessarily like, okay, we've got this specific chemical imbalance, this is what causes it?
Nature.
That would be nature, yeah. Or maybe there's a different person that has a different set of chemical imbalances that also projects the same
sure.
The result's the same. The result is a set of tics that people call Tourette's, but maybe it's not the exact same thing. So maybe one person's experience isn't the same as mine. But if you've got a person who has these physical tics that they can't stop doing and they're wondering whether or not their Tourette's is real, my answer is yeah. Yeah, it is. Like, I don't care who you are. If you can't stop doing it, whether you've developed it, that would be a nurture situation.
Wouldn't the
watched
difference
a bunch of
be
videos.
If you told the people with Tourette's that it's not real? The ones that still have it after they believe it are the ones that really have it. And the ones that don't have it after they believe it.
That would almost be like a placebo effect type thing, yeah.
That would be the difference, wouldn't it?
It would be. Well, I see. The thing is, I don't know if there is a difference at all.
Okay. Because no one's ever done that. Who
no.
knows? It's a theoretical experiment.
In the end, what it is an urge to do a tick, and then a
Okay.
satisfying of that urge. So if you've got those two things and nobody really knows the exact cause of it, if you've got those two things, you've got an urge.
Do you know that they've ever done the thing where they put the stickies on your brain?
I never put stickies on my brain, but I don't know. I don't know if they've done it to anybody else.
If you're a neuroscientist and you want to have a guinea pig here,
no stickies on the brain. I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
Elon, get that Neuralink up. Let's do this. Yeah, I'm sure you're the last dude on earth who would ever do a Neuralink, right?
Yep, totally.
That's funny, man. Oh, Lynn.
Yeah.
So, what other aspects is there that most people don't know about this that you wish people did, or
it's. I think the number one thing. I don't really worry so much about what the general public thinks about it. What I wish that people that had it. My hope is that people that have it. Those are the ones that I hope that they understand that it can absolutely be like I said, I go most of my days without even thinking about it. It's not a topic of conversation. It's not something I think about. It's not something that alters my life in any significant way. And the thing that I hope is that people that have it, especially younger people that have it bad, understand that that's possible. And I hope it is possible for them. I hope that, like I said, I'm not presuming that anybody else that, has the same abilities that I have to, but if what they have is similar to what I have, the process in their brain, that can absolutely be, it can be dealt with, and you can make it into a totally livable situation to where it's not a big deal.
Anybody who's going through it, I can see your motivation for wanting to talk about it now.
Yeah.
Because of you saying that. And that's very, very honorable, first of all, to put yourself out there, to show yourself as an example and become a bridge to others. With that said, would it be, am I overspeaking myself by asking if it would be all right for people watching
please.
to contact us?
Yeah, absolutely.
On our website, the Original Liberals website, we have an email link. If there's anything you want to ask Matt or talk to Matt about, please send it there.
Yeah,
all right?
please do. I'd be happy to that'd be awesome, actually.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's kind of why I'm doing this one.
That's awesome. Yeah. Is that part, what do you mean?
That's why I wanted to do this episode. Like, I'm hoping that, that I can at least be an example to somebody, or multiple people, and, kind of help somebody get through. Because I think the biggest issue, the biggest problem people have, obviously, is social and psychological. Like, how do I deal with this socially? How do I deal with walking into public and knowing that you're going to probably do or say things that are going to make people look at you weird?
Okay.
People who don't understand. So that's tough. It's especially tough when you're a kid. The biggest issue with Tourette's is learning to deal with that. Learning to, other than that, it's not, some tics can be painful. There's no doubt. Like, you can, I used to have one where I would hit my head against the back of a chair.
Okay.
That's not something that's not a social situation. That's how do I not bash my fucking skull in? Like,
right.
Obviously that's different, but, the biggest thing you have to overcome, obviously, is the social aspect of it. And, I think I've dealt with that part very, very well. So.
Oh, dude, you have a beautiful wife, a beautiful home. You great. You grew great for yourself. There's nothing that's ever limited you. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, other people, nobody should be looking and saying, "Boy, poor Matt," because really, he should be letting poor everybody else.
You said it. I'm a lucky guy.
But you make your own luck in this world.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I think a little bit of break time.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Right. Let's take a step back. We'll catch back up with you in a moment. Back.
We are.
I'm going to be blatantly honest.
Do it. My favorite thing is blatant honesty.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty good at that. Maybe that's why we're good friends. The reason I went to break was I noticed over the course of our conversation that literally, as we were going, the tics were starting to build.
Yeah.
It worried me because as your friend, my thought as we're progressing is that, oh my God, talking about this, is this going to make for a really bad day for you? As I care about you as my friend.
Yeah.
A bad day for you and maybe a bad month for you. I wanted to bring that up to you right here.
The answer is yes. Not necessarily a bad month, but it's Tourette's is worse when you talk about it. Probably more than likely, once this conversation ends, I'll go back to my baseline. But when you talk about, when you bring it to the forefront of your brain, it makes it worse because it's consciously there. I'm thinking about having urges to, do certain things, and absolutely talking about it always makes it worse. Which brings up an interesting point. It made me think when you asked me that question during the break. It brought me back to thinking about the people that, see a video of somebody with Tourette's and then all of a sudden they have Tourette's, or they think they might have Tourette's, and then they're worried that they're faking it and they're not sure, is it fake Tourette's, is it real Tourette's? That's kind of the same thing. I mean, somebody like me that's already got like the predisposition in my brain, when I start thinking about it and talking about it, it gets worse. Somebody who's never had a tic manifest in their life that starts thinking and talking about and learning about this syndrome, this mysterious syndrome where you feel the urge to do a tic and then you have to do it and all of a sudden they develop it themselves. It's the same concept as you and me talking about it right now and it bringing it to the forefront for me. Maybe it never manifested in that person before and then all of a sudden it is manifesting, which makes me wonder if kind of something I've always wondered is Tourette's real at all for anybody? Is it real? And I don't mean in the sense that is it real? Obviously it's real. Like I have it, But is it kind of like what I said earlier? Is it an actual definable syndrome with a certain set of causes and then a certain manifestations? Or, like I said earlier too, it's very closely related to OCD, ADD, those sort of things. Is it a different type of OCD? And is OCD an actual definable thing? Or is it just a personality trait that's debilitating for some people? So there's kind of a slippery slope there where, where do you draw the line and say this specific thing is, what makes it a specific syndrome? What makes Tourette's? If you've got an urge to do a tic, and then the only way to satisfy the urge is to do it, I would say you've got Tourette's. If talking about it makes it worse for me, and learning about it makes it appear for somebody who it never appeared for before, it's funny. It's almost kind of like a horror movie where like you watch the video and then like I'm thinking of The Ring.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily
you watch the video and then
or something
the
happens
curse
like
is upon
the
you.
curse, like the curse of like all of a sudden you learned about it and now it shows up. Like it's kind of crazy, but it's funny how the human brain works.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think this goes for a lot of things. That the more attention you give what you don't like, the more it feeds the monster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fact.
Racism was dead in the 90s as far as I was concerned, and look at all the attention that get brought back on in the last 10 years, and now everybody thinks they're a racist. I think it's getting worse.
Yeah, it's definitely racism.
The more you talk about it, not that repression is ever an answer, because repression's never an answer, in my opinion.
There's a difference between repressing something and dealing with it. And repressing something can be part of dealing with it, I think, as long as you deal with it by I do repress my Tourette's. I make a conscious effort to do it. It's not,
Sure.
but like I bring it to the forefront. I figure out how I'm going to deal with it, and then I decide to repress it. It's not repression the way you're talking.
No,
about,
I'm talking
I
about
guess.
social repression.
Yeah.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about internal repression on a lot of things is a bad idea too. Now, there are certain things that I believe psychologically that are purely it's how the brain works.
Yeah.
And most of the time, those are the situations where you need a drug to help bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Right? So with that being the case, the healthiest way of being in a situation that's less than ideal might be repression in that situation.
Yeah.
And that sounds like Tourette's might be one of those rare scenarios. It sounds like that may be a true statement.
Yeah. Repression is the best way to deal with it is to not think about it. 100%. Like,
Doesn't repression? I guess the whole point about repression is that the more you try not to think about it, the more it weighs in your subconscious, and it starts manifesting in different ways and blooming in different ways that you can't understand.
yeah, I think that might be the case for certain other psychological issues.
But Tourette's isn't like that.
No, because what you're trying to repress is an uninvited urge. It's not something that happened to you. It's not like there's not like a root cause.
There's not an abusive father involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of thing you're trying
Yeah.
to repress. Like those kind of things, I'm not saying anybody should repress, but the urge to do a tick is it comes from nowhere. Not saying it comes from nowhere. It comes from somewhere, but it's just this the way it feels is like a random uninvited urge. Now, if there's an underlying psychological cause, maybe there is for some people. Maybe there is for everybody.
Like you said, a dopamine imbalance.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that would be a physical cause, not a psychological cause, but that might cause...
Wouldn't having an urge manifest and then acting out that urge drive a spike in dopamine? Because what it does is messes with your reward system.
Yeah, it totally does. It's like anything else. It's like
your mind
addiction.
is creating false rewards for doing certain things to drive dopamine up.
It's like an addiction, and sometimes it's interesting too with sometimes you act out the tick and then you just want to do it again and again and again and again and again and again.
Because it feels good.
It does. It doesn't feel good, but it feels relief. It's weird. It feels good and bad at the same time. It's relief, but at the same time it's like the urge comes back almost instantaneously. She's like boom, 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 boom. Like
Was there a cognitive dissonance with it, where you know that it's not what you want to do, but it still feels good? So it's that contradiction of those two things.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good though. It feels it's a feeling of relief. It's not it doesn't feel good. It's so hard to describe.
It sounds so much to me like obsessive compulsive disorder.
And I think it is too. And I think it's not a coincidence that the two are so closely correlated that people with Tourette's almost, I don't know if usually is the right word, because I don't know the numbers, but I'll at the sake of being wrong, say usually have some sort of OCD too. I personally don't. Ask my wife. I have no additional OCD. My keys don't have to be in the right place every day.
Yeah, dude. You're totally not OCD
not
at
at
all.
all.
That's the straight. That's
Not at all.
exactly
It
it.
drives her nuts. And my mom used to say that too. She used to be, well, I wish you got some of the OCD with that. Like as a joke.
Yeah.
As a joke.
You have incredible self-control.
Yeah.
Which the OCD is like a overwhelming urge to try to exercise control over your environment.
Yeah.
Where you have this internal self-control thing going on.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like OCD in that way.
No.
Which is an interesting balance.
Yeah, it is. It's funny how it hits one person differently than it hits the other.
Yeah.
Like, somebody else has the Tourette's and all the OCD that comes with it. Somebody else has the OCD but no actual tics.
I mean, talking about self-control, you just did dry January, right?
I did do dry January.
Yeah? How was that?
I'm glad it's over. I'm glad it's over. I did go 31 days without drinking.
How did that affect the Tourette's?
I don't know, actually, now that I think about it, because like I said, I don't spend a whole lot of time.
You don't give it that energy. You don't feed
I
the
don't
monster.
spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. I'm so used to it. I've been living with it literally since I started forming memories. I don't ever remember not having it. I don't ever remember not having it.
To me, I'm energetic in talking about this because it's novel to me. It's new.
Sure.
It's something where you is just like old freaking hat.
Yep.
It's like, which is a great place to be in the sense that like you're not feeding it that extra energy because it's old hat, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's just my estimation of it. I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes.
You're right, though. That's exactly what it is. It's just something that's always been there.
Okay.
It's always going to be there. Although they did tell me when I was a kid that there was a chance it would go away completely.
Okay.
I looked forward to that. That didn't happen. But I'm telling you, it is so much better right now that it might as well have gone away completely. It's always worse in front of the camera. It's always worse when I'm drinking. When I'm drinking in front of the camera, that makes it really special, And now I'm drinking in front of the camera and talking about it. So, here we go. But no, on a regular day-to-day basis, I'm sure I do. I probably go entire days without doing a single tick sometimes, or so minimally that I don't even notice it. Like I said, there's certain things. If it's not a facial thing, if it's something with my fingers or my toes or something like that, then I probably don't even notice I'm doing it. It is conscious, but it's not like breathing. It's not
right
that subconscious, but it's such a part of me that I'm not. If it's not, the only time I'm really thinking about it is if I'm doing something where I really need to concentrate on what I'm doing, or I might die, like driving a car, or B, I'm in a social situation where I want to try not to, I want to try to keep it as under control as possible. Those are the times I'm thinking about it, and honestly, that probably makes it worse because I am trying to think about it, but at the same time,
that's repression.
Yeah,
that's when you're trying to repress it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I do have the strategies for keeping it as calm as possible, and that's helpful. But
it's worked great.
Yeah,
it's developed a sense of self-control, like we've addressed a couple times.
The best thing I ever did for myself isn't physically trying to think, okay, don't,
right.
no ticks. Right. It's not giving a shit.
It's don't eat that cheeseburger. Don't eat that cheeseburger. Yeah. Don't eat that. Yeah.
The best thing I ever did to make it better is to decide that I'm not really that worried about it.
Yeah.
And that's what made it better is realizing that it's not a big deal. I'm not being self-conscious about it, deciding that it's not going to be an insecurity for me, and and of course if it's bad enough it can be, but it's usually not, and that's because I decided to make it that. It's
it's incredible that you found a sense of control over yourself in this. This is one that it's. I think one of the hardest things for people is when they don't have that sense of autonomy.
Yeah.
And when they feel like they're powerless, they lose hope. And when you lose hope, you're lost.
Yeah.
But you've never lost that sense of autonomy and that sense of self-ownership.
No. And I've seen people overcome a lot worse. I know there's people in this world that have this is nothing.
Let's put it in the proper perspective here.
Really. And that's I think about that too. I'm sure it's, there's people that have nothing. They've got to overcome that. I've got to overcome some, yeah, exactly.
A little
bit of this, a little bit of that. Whatever, man, I'll be fine. Putting things in perspective is big.
For sure. Life is all about perspective, isn't it?
It's all about perspective. It's 100% about perspective.
That's how I know heaven's not real. All right? That's why, and I'll tell you why. Because there's millions of people out there who are so bored with their finite lives that they can't stay out of each other's business or know what to do with each other with themselves on a rainy day. Please take this rhetorically, by the way. And if they got to heaven where it was perfect, they get so bored so quick they'd start tinkering with it.
Yeah,
Am I wrong?
It would be boring.
It would be boring, right? If everything was perfect, it'd be boring, man. I wouldn't want to be there anymore. Send me back.
Yep.
But anyways, sorry I just delved into a weird alley right there.
No, that was cool.
Okay, as long as it's cool. All right. Well, what other kind of thoughts do you feel like are very important to add to this?
Other than what I've said already, it's I don't know. Like I said earlier, my biggest thing about this is, and my biggest thing when I said earlier maybe Tourette's isn't real, I said that knowing I have the potential to piss a lot of people off. Also, somebody's probably gonna hopefully they do. Somebody's gonna come back at me and show me a bunch of data that says no, it is like
No, and that's fine. Discourse is great.
That's great.
Yeah.
But when I said that, I think it's because, at least for me, that's the best way to look at it. If it's not real, you can overcome it. You know, if you're fighting against
maybe if
a
it's
syndrome, you have a syndrome. Somebody's told you have a syndrome. You're fighting. Now, what am I going to do? I've got a syndrome. There's nothing I can do about it other than take the drugs the guy gives me.
when someone tells you you have a syndrome, do you start defining yourself as a person with a syndrome?
Yeah, probably, and I probably did at one point too. It was a bigger deal in my life when I first realized I had
If you change your personal identity to accommodate this new syndrome you've been told that you have, what chances do you have of ever getting over it?
None.
Because you're
almost none.
Right, because you've now started building a personality around it.
Yeah. So I guess.
So even if it was completely real, would it be healthier to tell people that it isn't?
Yeah, probably, but I don't want to do that either.
Of course.
I think it's important to be accurate, but I truly think it's probably not the way people think it's real. It's probably not like a well-defined thing, like
Cut and dry.
This is Tourette's. No, I think it's probably a set of behaviors
Spectrum.
that manifest in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's not a cut and dry thing, and therefore it can be dealt with. And that's the best way, at least in my opinion, for somebody who's dealing with it to look at it. It can be overcome. You can make it better. You can make the manifestation. You can make the tics better. By really, it's almost like a meditation type thing. It's hard to say what's meditation and what
I
isn't.
love the idea of meditation.
But I used to do a lot of sitting in a dark room and thinking about just total
Quiet your mind.
Yeah, and that worked. It's a combination of that and then just deciding you don't give a shit about the rest of it.
Yeah.
Whatever you can meditate away, however much of it you can get your mental control over, great, and then the rest of it is what it is. And then take it like that, and then don't whatever's left over that you can't beat down, don't feel bad about it. And don't even. And the best thing to do is not think about it. You don't think. The less you think about it, the better it gets. And then, I'm sure there's been plenty of times where I've done some sort of tic, like a facial tic or something that made somebody look at me funny, and I probably didn't even realize why they were looking at me. I'm sure that's happened plenty of times because I'm not thinking about it. And
That's the way to be, man.
And that's. I hope that's something that can help some people. It's going to depend on. I'm not going to say it's going to depend on. There's a lot of people that have it way worse than me. I'm not going to say those people can't benefit from this, but it's going to be more difficult for those people.
Of course. Because I think it is a spectrum.
But I think
there's a spectrum of amplitude that I think people are pretty exposed to.
One thing I've noticed, though, is from a time in my life when it was worse to a time in my life when it was better, the biggest difference is my mindset. My mindset, I believe, has made it better. And I believe that is probably something that will work for anybody really that has it.
What would you think about self-hypnosis? Do you know anything about it?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
You ever heard of the quit smoking classes, things of that nature? Now, don't get me wrong, you can do it yourself, too. Plenty of stuff online about self-hypnosis. It's essentially just organized meditation.
Yeah.
And you take that meditation and you enter a suggestion into your own subconscious after going through a bunch of exercises to get yourself into a calm state. You get yourself down to I think they call them alpha waves, your brain to a very slow pattern. And when you do that, you're very suggestible on the subconscious level.
Yeah.
And once you're there, you can introduce your own suggestions. But you don't know whether that would help someone in a situation or not.
It probably would.
Okay.
It's not something I've ever tried, but
It worked for me with lifting weights. That's what it did. I was trying to lift weights better, and it worked. But yeah,
I guess my view is that trying to overcome Tourette's is probably harder than most anything else you're ever going to try to do, but it's the same concept.
sure.
It's the same concept. Like, it's all about like practice and focus, and like, I don't know. I learned to play guitar. That's easier than trying to beat down Tourette's, but
That's right.
you know, it's like, it's the same concept. It's I sat and I practiced and I focused, and you know, or anything else you ever learn to do.
You just get better at it.
Yeah, you get better at anything you practice doing. You know, practice learning to make your Tourette's better. It'll work. It might not make it go away, but it's, you know, and practicing guitar in my garage didn't make me Eric Clapton either, but you know, it did.
Right.
You know, that's life, and that's how that's. I don't think it's really that much different than anything else you're going to try to do or try to overcome, I guess.
My wife told me the other day, and this is just something coming off of memory, where there's a woman, and I don't know if you know about this, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, and I'd like to have your opinion if you do. There's a woman who's been making viral TikTok and YouTube videos, driving in her car with her Tourette's, or out in the world with her Tourette's. I want to say that my wife told me that she got found out as a fraud. Is this something you heard about?
No, I didn't.
It's not. I wish. So it would have been a more poignant question if you did know about it.
So how do you prove she's a fraud?
It's a good question.
I guess
I don't know all the
You'd
details.
have to know somebody that knew her.
If you know all about it, talk about it in the comments. You know, and bring
you
it
have
up.
to prove that she never had a single tick when she wasn't on camera, I guess.
Sure.
That would make you a fraud.
That it was someone fraudulently doing TikTok videos.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me a whole lot.
Right, well, it makes sense. You know, as a way to up views. You know,
I wonder how many people she caused to develop real Tourette's.
It'd be interesting to find out.
You know, or whatever, whether it's real Tourette's or not. I don't know. My opinion, like I said earlier.
If I had to estimate intuitively, I think there's an OCD component to the people who don't have the Tourette's in its real, most poignant, basic, hereditary form. And now they may have OCD on that hereditary level.
Yeah.
You know, the nature way. But that OCD causes them to develop similar tics by watching other people who have Tourette's, and then all of a sudden,
the OCD is manifesting.
All of a sudden, do I really have Tourette's?
Yeah.
No, you probably just have OCD, and you're manifesting
Which,
Tourette's.
like I said, is the same. It's the only difference is how it comes up forth. So is it real? Yeah, probably. Now all of a sudden it's real, but I don't know. I don't know. All I know is all I know is my own experience, and you know, I hope my experiences and my suggestions can, you know, help somebody overcome what they're dealing with. It's
Anything else you want to add before we finish things up?
I don't think so. I mean, I've said my piece. Unless you've got something else you want to ask me.
Only thing I want to reiterate is that if you're suffering with a situation where you feel like it would be helpful to you to reach out to Matt, please do.
Yep.
Please do. That's what that's the big thing.
And also, tell me I'm an asshole. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me it's real. It's there's probably been a bunch of research since the last time I looked at it. All these things I'm telling you, tell me. I'll take it too.
That's one thing about you and me.
Criticize me. I'm fine with it.
You and I do not think I want to talk for myself, but I think you're the same way. I do not think in certainties. I think in probabilities, possibilities, likelihoods, and unlikelihoods.
I'm 100%. I'm 100%. I'm right there with you. I agree.
So we're not experts in anything. But at the same time, we also have a litany of life experiences, things we've both gone through individually as people, things that you and I disagree about, agree about, and we are literally here purely to invite intellectual discourse between ourselves and other people like yourself.
Yep.
So add your part to it, and we welcome it because, again, I only think in probability, so you can't hurt me with your opinion, okay?
Nope.
I will weigh your opinion, and if you're right, I will gladly say thank you because I'll never lose.
For sure.
Yep. And also, too, the one way I want to end this, too, is if everybody getting Tourette's meant that they ended up having a life like Matt does, everybody should want Tourette's. All right. All right.
Thanks,
My man.
Appreciate
All right, thank
that.
you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Hit like and follow, huh?